Welcome to episode 301 of OTD, your daily dose of soccer history by 17 Lost Guy. It's August 28, 1981, Vienna. Béla Guttmann dies at the age of 82. A Hungarian, a Jew, a Holocaust survivor, a football nomad who crossed borders again and again, won championships on both sides of the Atlantic, helped carry one of football's great tactical revolutions to Brazil, and then broke Real Madrid's grip on European football with Benfica. There's even a curse attached to his name. But the curse is the least interesting thing about him, because Béla Guttmann did not merely win football matches, he helped change what a football coach could be. But how did we get here? We start in Budapest, around the turn of the 20th century. Guttmann grows up in a Jewish family. His parents are dance teachers, and young Béla learns dance too. That sounds like a footnote in his biography, but it wasn't. He learned and practiced balance, footwork, rhythm, movement. Then football takes over. He joins MTK Budapest, the great cosmopolitan club of the city, and wins Hungarian championships in 1920 and 21. And this is where the first great influence enters the story. Jimmy Hogan. The English coach had brought to Central Europe something quite different from English kick and rush football, the Scottish passing game. Keep the ball on the ground, short combinations, technique before brute force. Think about space. I talked about Hogan in episode 91. Guttmann grows up inside that MTK school, part of a football culture whose influence eventually runs through the mighty Magyars and far beyond Hungary. Then, in 1922, with anti-Semitism rising in Hungary, he moves to Vienna and Hakoah. Hakoah is Hebrew for strength. It is a proudly Jewish sporting club and one of the most remarkable football organizations of the 1920s. In 1925, Hakoah win the Austrian championship. The football is similarly technical and combination-based. And then they tour Europe, Egypt, the United States. In 1926, 46,000 people watch Hakoah at the Polo Grounds in New York. Guttmann decides to stay in America. He plays in the American Soccer League, teaches dance, tries business, loses heavily in the Wall Street crash in 1929, and absorbs another football world. And here comes one of the stranger connections, 1930, Hakoah All-Stars Tour, South America. In Sao Paulo, a penniless Hungarian named Imre Hirschl approaches Guttmann looking for work. Guttmann gives him a job as the team masseur. Hirschl travels with him to Argentina, gets left behind when the money runs out, talks his way into coaching Gimnasia La Plata, and becomes one of the great Hungarian coaching exports to South America, later working at River Plate and Peñarol. Hirschl was not Guttmann's teacher. If anything, Guttmann helped open the door through which Hirschl entered South American football. We'll talk about Hirschl another day. It's a great story too. Guttmann himself returns to Europe and becomes a coach. Hakoah, Enschede, Újpest. With Újpest he wins the Hungarian Championship and the Mitropa Cup in 1939. Then history becomes much bigger than football. Hungary passes anti-Jewish laws. The Nazis occupy the country in 1944. Guttmann hides in Budapest. He ends up in a forced labor camp. When deportation threatens, he and several others escape. He survives the final months of the Holocaust in hiding. Many members of his family don't. After the war, he rarely speaks about what happened. And then he goes back to football. Romania, Hungary, Italy, Argentina, Cyprus, Italy again. Always moving, always arguing, always convinced that the coach, not the director sitting in the grandstand, should control the team. At AC Milan, he is dismissed while the club is on top of Serie A. After that, he reportedly inserts a clause into future contracts. If my team is first, you cannot sack me. And he develops another principle. 3 seasons at a club? Too long. His famous rule was that the 3rd season was fatal. Then comes Brazil. 1957. Guttmann takes charge of Sao Paulo. He wins the Paulista Championship, but his larger contribution is tactical. The old 2-3-5 had already been evolving through the Hungarian school. Marton Bukovi experimented with the withdrawn centre forward. Gustav Sebes developed those ideas with the mighty Magyars. Guttmann becomes another important exponent of the emergent 4-2-4. 4 defenders, 2 midfielders, 4 attackers. Width, movement, freedom, and he carries those ideas into Brazil. Sao Paulo itself credits him with introducing the system there, alongside new training methods involving multiple balls, shooting zones, and more tactical preparation. We shouldn't say that Guttmann invented Brazilian football, of course. Brazil already had an enormous football culture and its own innovators. But the connection is real. The man coaching Sao Paulo immediately before Guttmann was Vicente Feola, and 1 year later, Feola coaches Brazil at the 1958 World Cup. Brazil use the 4-2-4. Pelé emerges. Brazil become world champions for the first time. Hungarian ideas have crossed the Atlantic and been transformed into something unmistakably Brazilian. Guttmann crosses back. Portugal. Porto. He wins the league in 1959, and then he moves directly to Benfica. And now comes the masterpiece. He removes roughly 20 players, promotes youth, demands authority, builds around José Aguas, Mario Coluna, José Augusto, and the rest. Benfica win the Portuguese championship, then Europe, and we told this part of the story in episode 212. For the first 5 seasons of the European Cup, Real Madrid win every single one. Then in 1961, Guttmann's Benfica beat Barcelona 3-2 in Bern. The monopoly is broken. A year later, Benfica meet Real Madrid themselves. Puskás scores a hat-trick. Madrid leads 2-0 and then 3-2, but Benfica keep attacking. And a teenager from Mozambique takes over, Eusébio. His route to Lisbon is another Guttmann story. Brazilian great José Carlos Bauer had seen the youngster in Lourenço Marques and alerted Guttmann. Benfica moved quickly, amid a bitter struggle with Sporting for his signature. Eusébio arrives in Lisbon, and in the 1962 European Cup final, he scores twice. Benfica 5, Real Madrid 3, back-to-back European champions. And then, because this is Guttmann, he moves again. Within months, he is coaching Peñarol in Montevideo and reaches the 1962 Copa Libertadores final against Pelé Santos, which ultimately prevails after 3 matches. But so what? Start with the tactics. Guttmann belongs to a remarkable Hungarian chain. Hogan, Bukovi, Sebes, Guttmann. The passing game becomes more fluid. Positions become less rigid. The center forward can withdraw. Defenders become a back 4. Wingers stretch the field. Those ideas travel because men like Guttmann travel. And they travel partly because 20th century Europe keeps forcing people to move. Anti-Semitism drives Jewish footballers and coaches across borders. The Holocaust destroys much of the culture that produced them. The survivors carry their ideas elsewhere. Argentina, Uruguay, Brazil, Portugal. Football changes with them. Then there's the manager himself. Guttmann is a demanding figure, theatrical, confrontational, mobile. He believes the coach needs authority. He walks away when he doesn't have it. He behaves less like the old trainer and more like the modern superstar manager. The coach as protagonist. The coach with a philosophy. The coach powerful enough that the club has to accommodate him. And then, yes, the curse. After the second European Cup, Guttmann leaves Benfica following a dispute over money. Legend says he declares that Benfica will not become European champions again for 100 years. And Benfica keep reaching European finals and keep losing them. Before the 1990 European Cup final in Vienna, Eusébio even goes to Guttmann's grave and reportedly prays for the curse to be lifted. Benfica lose to Milan. Then there's no good contemporary evidence that Guttmann ever delivered that famous 100-year curse, though. In fact, in a 1963 interview, he predicted Benfica could become European champions again. The curse seems to have grown later. Great story, probably mythology, and that is almost perfect for Guttmann. Before we go, 3 things to take away from August 28, 1981. First, Béla Guttmann was part of a much larger Central European football revolution. Hogan, Bukovi, Sebes, and Guttmann. Ideas about passing, movement, and positional freedom traveled with these coaches, and Guttmann carried them as far as Brazil. Second, his life cannot be separated from the history around him. Anti-Semitism drove him across borders. He survived the Holocaust, then rebuilt a career that eventually took him to the summit of European football. And third, forget the curse for a moment. The real Guttmann legacy is bigger. 2 European Cups, Benfica, Eusébio, the 4-2-4, and one of football's earliest truly global superstar coaches. The trophies are real. The influence is real. The curse? That one we can leave to mythology. On this day in 1981, Béla Guttmann died in Vienna. The Wanderer had finally stopped moving, but his football had not. That's all for episode 301 of OTD, your daily dose of soccer history by a 17-lost guy. Tomorrow, August 29, 1970, Swindon Town are playing Millwall. Second half. Then something rather important breaks. The goalpost. What do the laws say when the goal itself can no longer stand up? Stay tuned.